G'day guys, Make with the Circle. The other day I put up a video saying I'd like to do an AMA, talk with you all, answer some of your questions to me. And today we're going to follow on with the second half of that, and I'll do the actual answering. So, let's get down to it. Warshack 11. I'm sorry what you tried is not working after 30 years of this game. I know Forge World Games Workshop just don't care. Money is all they care about. If you cut their sales by 25% or more, they would fix it, so join me now in buying nothing but recasts. I refuse to fuel the greed, etc. That was suggested in the last video I did on the pricing. As I said, I didn't want to just do any one technique. I didn't want to say, don't buy from them, or here's what they're doing to you, or sign a petition. I wanted to do all of those things at once. So the more angles you can attack them from, the better chances you have of them hearing at least one of those things and communicating your point to them. If you just send them emails, you'll get cut-paste responses. If you just send them reviews on Google, they'll take them down. If you just target them with sales losses, not many people will join with you because they'll just go, whatever, it'll never work. And if you just tell people what they're doing is wrong, they'll say, well, why don't you do something about it? Hence, I did something about it, started a petition, asked people not to spend with them, and tried to raise awareness. That's the thing, you've got to tackle these things from multiple approaches if there's anything I've learned in business. Gorgas Oil P asks, Maka, what was your first army and how old were you when you got into 40k? I got into 40k in 2nd edition with an Ultramarines army, painted in bright blue with I think it was Bad Moon Yellow for the trim, because I didn't have Golden Yellow, which was the recommended colour. And they were bad. Oh, they were very badly painted Marines. But I bought a set of Scouts next, a little blister pack of 3. And when I actually went into Games Workshop, they showed me how to paint the 3. So that was my first 40k army. And those 3 scouts that I painted were brilliant because I had someone guiding me. And I'm one of those people who I very quickly pick up on techniques that I'm shown. That's helped me out with my work life and my trade life. Helped me out in school. I was not a great student because I took in the information given to me and was very easily able to spit it back out, which meant I was a very bored student in school, which meant I was very disruptive to the people around me. Just one of those things. And that pissed off the teachers, and they'd always sit there at parent-teacher interviews going, if your son just applied himself, he's so good, blah, 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 blah. My mum would be like, slap me in the back of the head, why don't you apply yourself more? But it wasn't for me. In hindsight, I probably should have been like a doctor, or maybe actually gone down the university education route. Something like that would have been good for me, but, well, it's not what I chose, and I have to live with that. VX345. Tell us about yourself as a person in your everyday life outside of Warhammer. Do you like going to the bar? What other hobbies do you have, etc., etc.? I know about the rest of our viewers, but I'd like to like to know more about the person behind Maka. Good question. I have a house. I have a fiance. I have a lovely dog, a German Short-haired Pointer. I like to go shooting, and I sometimes take the dog with me. I have a 303 rifle. It's a brilliant rifle. 1942, made in the United States as well. It's a 303 number 4 Mark 1 star. I also have 4-wheel drive, which I like to take 4-wheel driving. Just the other week I drove to the top of a mountain, across the other side of my state, all the way to the top of the mountain in the snow. Just because I could. Those are the sort of things I like to do. I also like to read, study history, watch a lot of documentaries. Probably know more about Rome and Egypt than I should. Lots of little things like engineering, medicine all fascinate me, but there's only so much you can learn in a lifetime, and I will never be an expert in any of it, just enough to get myself into trouble. What else? Do I like going to the bar? I do, but pubs are a hard thing, because often when people say, oh, let's go out somewhere, you don't end up at a proper pub. You end up at some place with loud music, and you can't talk to your mates, and everyone around you is too drunk, and it's a pain in the ass. But a good mate, Danny Whitehead, took me to this little pub once. It was just a little hole in the wall, that just looked like a dump. and we went in, and I had the best chicken parma there. And it was like the pub from Cheers. It didn't have seats all around. It didn't have music blaring. It was just a bar, and the bar was an all-around bar, and you all sat around the bar, and everyone knew everyone, and it's one of the best nights I've ever had at a pub in my life. So yeah, I do enjoy going to the pub, but I don't get enough of that, and I'm too old now for nightclubbing. I'm 30 in October, so yeah. Macca, do you think you could do more What Broke the Fans videos or faction focuses for 40k? I find those videos really entertaining and enjoyable, says Xenomorph FN2187. Well, yes, there will always be more What Broke the Fans videos. The thing is, though, I can only do them very retrospectively at the moment because What Broke the Fans videos are very hard to do with 8th edition because I just simply don't collect 8th edition at all. So I don't know enough to fairly critique them. Because the thing is, 8th edition is so vastly different to what's come before. You can't say, the Tyranids regressed from this to this to this to this, and now 8th edition, which is totally different, has done this to them. It's just not compatible. Apples and oranges. That may be called Warhammer 40,000, may have the same names for the factions, but it's a very different game. So, I don't know. It's very hard to do What Broke the Fans for it. And you gotta be careful, like Hobbit players are the worst to do What Broke the Fans for, so I don't ever want to touch them again, because they're just fucking morons. I did my What Broke the Fans videos, and people didn't really attack the points. Like, for example, I said the game has died, and all these people came out of the woodwork saying, the game's not dead, I still play it, heaps of people play it. Battlefleet Gothic is a game which I also consider to have died. Doesn't mean people don't play it, but it means that there is not much active support for it, which is something we'll talk about later. But basically, they're the sort of people who, whenever I bring up a point, would say things like, you should just be happy you got something at all. It's just the most corporatist, I don't know whether it's starry-eyed optimism or what, but it was very frustrating to deal with, and I'd just rather not worth my time dealing with them. Dapper Papa, how do I find a girlfriend, he asks. That's a very good question. I don't have a true answer for you because, I hate to say it, but all women are different. And women are a lot harder than men to understand. I mean, I'm going to be pretty general here, but guys, they want to be fucked, they want to be fed. There's not too much more to us, right? Loyalty, that kind of thing. As you get older, more things become important to us. Like, you want someone who can be a true partner that you can bounce your problems off and can give you feedback back to, and they complete you as a person. When it comes to finding a girlfriend, though, the one bit of advice that's never let me down is you got to be able to approach them. If you can't go up and talk to a girl, let them know how you feel or things like that, you're never going to get anywhere, are you? Girlfriends don't just fall into your dick. And another good bit of advice is be assertive. For all this talk about new age men and modern feminism and all that piss, you've got to be affirmative. You've got to be able to say yes, no, make decisions. Okay? Women respect a guy, generally. Not all women, they're as different as any guy is to another. But they respect a guy who can actually make a call. Even if it's the wrong call, at least you can fucking make up your mind. You're not a piece of shit who sits there meekly in the corner going, oh, what do I do now? Alright, Alien asks, where do you stand on the Islamization of your country, and why are your citizens tolerating it? Why are there no-go zones in your country? What are your people doing to change it? The Islamization's not that extreme in Australia. And I mean, I've lived in Holsworthy, in the army base there, and I used to go out to Liverpool all the time, which the slang name for it, the racist name, was Lebopool, because the place was like a little Afghanistan, little Iraq, little Lebanon, full of Islamic shops, Arabs, everything was written in Arabic lettering in the markets. People didn't speak English there. I remember going out 2-3 o'clock in the morning to go watch a movie, and then walking back to my car and no problems. So Do I think it's great that there's a divide between cultures? No. I think if you go to a country, you definitely should be allowed to practice your beliefs. But if your beliefs conflict with those of the parent nation you're in, the parent nation's beliefs as a conglomerate should come first. There is no true easy answer to the problem, however. As for my citizens tolerating it, I think Australians are very apathetic. Probably the most apathetic nation on earth. We've gone through, what, 6 prime ministers or something in the span of about a decade. Because the politicians just decide they want to put a different person in power. It'd be like if today in America Trump was president, tomorrow it was Hillary, the next day it was Obama again, something like that. It's really fucked up how political system works at the moment. Because we don't vote for the leader, we vote for the party who picks the leader. And the unwritten agreement with Australians was always, hey, whichever person is the person on the television, the John Howard, that kind of thing, whoever the politician is on the TV, that's the one you're voting for, not the party, in reality. And the unwritten thing was, alright, if you voted for that guy, that's the guy that's going to get in. And that's the one who's going to be the Prime Minister until you vote them out. Okay, that's fair. But the politicians lately have decided they want the power for themselves, and they're all greedy for it, and they don't really care about our nation's interests. And, as a people, we're happy to let them get away with that. So, if Islamization of my country was a huge problem, our citizens wouldn't do anything about it until it was too late. That's just the nature of the country. This is a country that is very disarmed as well. Not many people here, well, a lot of people have firearms, but not many people are in open support of them anymore. They're sort of seen as a big bad. There's a lot of negative press about them. And, there's no question of an armed revolt or the American well-armed militia, that kind of thing, ever happening. So, there's not much you can really do about it. And nor should you, unless it becomes a major problem. And I'm sure that it is a problem in some areas for some people, but I've not been witness to it, so I can't really comment upon it, I'm afraid. Very non-hobby question, but I did my best to answer it. Genesis Unknown asks, do you think with this petition and the Warhammer community outrage at the price changes from Forge World, the Games Workshop will even do anything at all to their pricing or even addressing the community on this? No. The thing is, we're creating awareness, we're making a buzz, we're putting noise in their ear. Games Workshop it's a ship with a drunk captain at the wheel. So the crew know what they're doing. The crew is us, the players. Maybe even the senior crew are the staff who work for the company in the junior levels. The developers and the people who work in the game stores. The local managers, that kind of thing. We all know what we want. And this drunk captain's like, let's steer into the fucking rocks. And the rest of us are like, oh, we don't want to steer into the rocks. You're going to kill us all. And they're like, no. Into the fucking rocks. Trust me, it's a great idea. That's the sort of thing that's going on here. We can tell them what we want. They just don't want to hear it. They only want to hear the money talking. Because that's all they care about. And the company is too junior a company. They have stumbled into their success. And they don't realise how to communicate with their people properly. They don't realise how to communicate with fans. And fan loyalty is huge. It's got them this far. But they keep jacking up the prices. Like their solution to all their problems is just to increase pricing. I mean, people think that Warhammer community is there for them to listen to us. It is not. It is them speaking to us. Speaking at us. In the Warhammer community, they turn around, they put up a post. But if you try and talk to them, you'll just hear things like, that's a great idea. We'll be sure to pass that on. Cut, paste, answer. Because that's what they do. Like with the pricing article, they brought out that bullshit. Oh, the account-nomancers say. They give us these sort of politically correct answers because they don't have real answers from real people for us. They're not going to sit there and say, well, that's a very interesting thought you have there, Genesis Unknown. Would you like to tell us more about why you feel this way? They're not going to say that. They don't have to say it to every single person. Cut-paste answers are fine for the majority, as long as they do the occasional good interaction. But they don't do any interaction with real customers. I mean, if they did, and actually spoke to someone like me, I would treat them very differently to how I do in the videos. In the videos, I put on a persona of a very, very aggressive, angry person. But those who've met me in real life know that I'm mostly just a laugh. You know, I'm just sitting back, relaxing, have a beer, have a joke around. Someone brings up Games Workshop pricing, I'll just say to them, oh, they're fucking idiots with how they're handling it. And I'll leave it at that. And if I was to interview them, I wouldn't, Phil Kelly. Phil Kelly ruined many codexes for me. Chaos codexes. And he is also responsible for writing abominable codexes like the Eldar in 6th and 7th edition. If I sat down with Phil Kelly, I wouldn't say, why did you fuck these codexes up, you fucking moron? I would say to him, okay, Phil, this is the approach you took with the codexes. Why is this? And, have an actual conversation with him. So to get back to your original point, do I think that a petition and community outrage will force them to change? Not unless it hits them in the dollars. And as I explained earlier in the video, I've tried to get it to hit them in the dollars by approaching it from many directions. But there's not too much more we can do, unfortunately. It may be in people's best interests to just try and source from other people who produce models, or even to go and try other game systems, because Games Workshop is just a small part of the hobby. They're the biggest, the most in-your-face, the flashiest. They're like a car company. They're like the Toyota of the hobby. They're big, they sell cars in every country, but then you've got these other companies, like Koenigsegg, make these brilliant sports car hypercars for businessmen who earn billions of dollars every year. And they make, they're a very small part of the market, but they make a brilliant product targeted for a very small demographic. There's plenty of other games out there that you can try which are great, so just keep that in mind. Lemmy S. Kelton asks, where is the inner circle? Well, for those on the Patreon who are in the inner circle, there's actually a Facebook page for it, but not much happens in it at all, so I don't know if it's really worth having. As for the joke, the outer circle is this page because when I started it, I spoke to my friend Kat and I said, look, we both hate a lot of the decisions that the company has made. We don't hate the company, or at least at that time. I still don't hate the company, to be honest. I just hate some of their actions. But I said, look, I've looked on the internet, read forums, I've noticed there's a big trend with people fanboying for the company and they're just shutting down criticism. Like, how many pricing threads have you seen? Like, legitimate pricing threads that just keep going and going and more comments get added. You don't see them. Because whenever someone tries to start a pricing thread on Facebook, it just gets canned by the page admins. Same thing on forums. Most YouTubers, they want to get those review kits from Games Workshop. They want the good press. They want the big views. Well, because they want those big views, they don't want to upset anyone. And they know that, hey, the majority of people are either on the border or at least mostly happy with what the company's doing. So they aim for that demographic. They're just like, Games Workshop, maybe this isn't the best move, but hey, look at all these other great moves they're doing. And they only want to talk positive things about the company. So Kat and I said, fuck that. We want to be the voice for the people who are getting shut down, the people who aren't being heard. So that's why we started the Outer Circle. We're like, look, what can we give to the community? We can give them honesty. We can give them our honest opinions. It doesn't mean we're right. It just means we're right in what we think. Or at least we think we're right when we say it. So if we say, prices are wrong and here's why they're wrong, we try and back it up with evidence. When we do series like What Broke the Fans, it's saying, hey, we were fans of this, or we collected this army, and here's the things that happened to it that upset us. Because most people, when they talk about a faction, they say, here's the history of, the Sisters of Battle. And they'll go, oh, Sisters of Battle popped up in 2nd edition, and in 3rd edition they did this, and then 4th edition they got this Great Witch Hunters Codex, then they sort of only got White Dwarf updates from then on. And and then they'll tell you about their lore. When I covered the Sisters of Battle, I tried to say, look, here's what they started as, here's what they changed into, here's where they lost their sort of faction focus and devolved. So I tried to tackle it from the sort of opinion of mine that the high point for them was the Witch Hunters Codex, and it's just been downhill ever since. And yeah, they're going to get a plastic release next year, that's great. Games Workshop is bringing it out. How many years did it take? The Witch Hunters Codex, correct me if I'm wrong, was 2004. So that's 14 years. 14 years by the time, well, to now, 15 next year when they get released. Like, it's just crazy. So the outer circle is that group of people who are on the outside. They're not in that circle of people who all get along and all agree that everything's just hunky-dory with Games Workshop. The people who will just tolerate it. The outer circle is the group of people who say, things are a little bit fucked up, we're not going to tolerate it, we're going to make our voices heard, and we're going to make the people who aren't spoken for heard. And it doesn't matter if we're not a big channel, if we don't have much reach, because at least we're letting those people who have legitimate criticisms know, hey, there are people out there who hear you. Whether I've succeeded in that, I don't know. But that's the one thing that's mattered most to me with this channel. Endless Fantasy asks, what do you aim to achieve with this petition? Do you really think Games Workshop cares? You should inform government officials and institutions about Games Workshop's malpractice, tell them clients are being scammed. Non-serious question, what are your favourite 40k fantasy novels, series, comics, or other format of media with lore content that's not the Horus Heresy? I like Battlefleet Gothic novels. There aren't enough of them. That's about it, because I've sort of... Most Games Workshop novels devolved into Mary Sue's. They get a main character, and I don't know. It's just a funny thing with Games Workshop writing. I can never quite root for the characters in many of their novels. Like you read Gaunt's Ghosts, and you know, it's written by a very skilled author. But Gaunt's Ghosts has things like Imperial Guard snipers, and you know, going around picking off Alpha Marines, Space Marines at will. It's like, yeah, okay, they're badasses and they're well trained, but it's like Space Marines shouldn't be getting picked off, even by Imperial Guard snipers, you know. It doesn't... I mean, I'm grossly misrepresenting the novel here, but to me, it's like, yeah, it would make more sense if you were just picking off, like, regular old renegades, but the fact that they're like, oh, Space Marines, you just couldn't leave it well enough alone. It's like, you had to take it up to that next step. It's like, Gaunt's Ghosts are so good, they can even kill Space Marines. It's dumb. As for what I want to achieve with this petition, I explained that sort of earlier. And as for informing the government, the Australian consumer watchdog is the most toothless beast in the world. However, Adobe scammed Australia for years with the pricing on some of their products. And the consumer watchdog did manage to make Adobe drop their prices down to a fair rate. When contacted about Games Workshop, the consumer watchdog basically said, well, they can charge whatever they like, even if it's way more than what they charge in another country. Keep in mind, to give you an idea of how useless the consumer watchdog is here, they turned around to the big petroleum companies like BP, Shell, Caltex, and said, your prices are too high. And they basically said to them, so what? You need the petrol. And that was where it ended. So... them making Games Workshop do anything is laughable. Gax13 asks, what is your opinion on other Warhammer YouTube channels like Kirioth, Chapter Master, Valrek, Arch Warhammer? Good question. I like Kirioth. He's pretty unbiased. Yes, he is more prone to liking Games Workshop's moves, but not in a bad way. He's choosing to see what is positive about the company, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not blatant optimism where he just says everything they're doing is good. Like, he does have the balls to turn around and say when they're not doing something great, and I really respect that. He's an optimist, and that's totally fine. So yeah, love his work. Chapter Master Velrek, Yeah, he's more of the full optimist. Very rarely will he say the company's made a wrong move, in my opinion. So he may have, but I don't actively watch him because the videos of his I have watched, mostly I have not agreed with the content in them, and it hasn't made me want to go back and watch more. Because, again, if I have to pick something I want to watch, well, generally I'm going to pick something that is interesting. Let's be honest, I'm not just going to sit there and watch all of someone's channel backlog for the sake that I might find something I do like. As for Arch Warhammer, I do enjoy his channel. I've liked some of his lore recaps. He does sort of drone on a bit. I mean, I do too sometimes, so I can't really blame a person, but he go off on tangents like, to say this orc warlord was pissed is an understatement. This orc warlord was so pissed that it made it look like the fury of 1,000 suns descending down on a planet in one meteoric shower. And even then, that would be to understate the fury of this orc warboss. Okay, he was angry. I get it. Also, his political commentary, it's almost like he needs another channel to put that into because it is so different to the other stuff that he does. If he wants to talk about, feminism and that kind of thing, like, he really tackles that fucking bull head on. Um, yeah. I don't know. I like him. I'd love to be able to sit down and chat with him. Like, I've been able to chat with Leaky Cheese. I've been able to chat with Ego Queen Alexis, both of which were very enjoyable conversations. Like, I don't care if Ego Queen Alexis hangs shit on me and their channel in her Twitch streams. I know she does. I don't care. It's a free world. Her words are not going to hurt me. People seem to have forgot that on internet. They're just fucking words. Very polite people to deal with, and had a good laugh with both of them. So I'd love to be able to sit down with, Kirioth, Valrak, Arch Warhammer, because I think a dialogue with people is a great way to broaden the hobby. Tim Walker, what hobby-focused YouTube channels do you watch? Well, obviously there's the aforementioned ones. I do watch Leaky Cheese. I sometimes watch Ego Queen Alexis if the topic really appeals to me. I often just stumble upon things that I think maybe I want to watch this. One of the things I enjoy watching is Tested, which is a YouTube channel from America. It has Adam Savage, who used to be on Mythbusters, and some other people on there. And I enjoy watching Adam Savage's one day builds. Now, this is where I'm going to sound really arrogant, but I look at a lot of what he does and I go, it works, but you did it in a very amateurish way. And people will go, wait, Macca, he's an industry expert, and he's been doing it for years, and he builds props and he's worked on movies. And I go, that's great. I come from a formal trade training background in education. And when I see someone hold like a jagged piece of metal in their hand when they're using a drill press, I go, that is a great way to lose fingers. Okay? He does it out of laziness or bad habits that he's picked up over time, and he probably knows it too, but I hate it when I see those little things. And, using verniers as scribes and things like, oh, it grinds my gears, but I love to watch them. And I watched one of them. It was a set of 3D printed Blade Runner 2049 binoculars, or a monocular. I was so impressed by it, I went out and got a 3D printed monocular myself, which I was still trying to make. Only because I haven't sanded away the 3D printing lines yet. It takes a lot of time because there's a lot of parts. I will finish it and maybe even show it on the channel. So that's the kind of stuff I like. Quiet Side says, do you think you will ever completely abandon all Games Workshop related stuff and move into a different gaming system and wargaming universe? Are your choices greatly restricted by what other people are playing in your area? Can I see myself abandoning Games Workshop? Yes, I can. Part of the reason why I've stuck around so long, though, is to speak on other people's behalves, because I felt someone had to, as I sort of stated earlier. For the moment, I really enjoy the Horus Heresy game. I think missteps have been made in it, but it is by far their best game system. Some will disagree on it. The simpletons, the simple peasants who like their 40k, it is what it is. the thing is, they've got some great games. Like, I enjoy Shadespire. I really enjoy the Horus Heresy. I'd love to. I've got a Necromunda gang. They're cultists. They're not one of the Necromunda gang books, but I didn't buy any Necromunda game. I used Chaos Cultists I already had lying around and converted them up using parts from Warhammer Fantasy Flagellants that I had lying around, funny enough, which worked really well. Um, so I have a Necromunda gang. I also have the Blood Bowl game. And I do have a star player for the humans and the Grok and Crumbleberry, I think they are, which I haven't even opened the pack yet, but they came fucked up in their blister pack from Forge World. And Forge World was like, oh, well, we can send you a replacement part. So they sent me out just the replacement head from the Ogre Grok. Because he has like a pickle helmet, like a helmet with a spike on the top. And yeah, that one came snapped too because I sent it in a fucking envelope. Just an envelope. Like someone at Forge World just grabbed an envelope, put the head in there, sealed it up, didn't even put any foam or anything in it, and then just sent it through the fucking mail. And yeah, she'll be right all the way to Australia. Meanwhile, I see people going, oh yeah, my Warhound Titan had an air bubble in it, so they gave me a new Warhound Titan. I'm like, fucking really? They gave me one head to replace a model's head. So, I don't know. If they do things like that, I'm like, ugh, why do I stick with you? Battlefleet Gothic, though, is something I really want to do if they bring it back out. But I don't want to pay for it. Not with the prices they're giving me. So, catch-22, huh? And are my choices greatly restricted by what other people are playing in your area? Yes, they are. There's about 30 to 60 total people in the entire of Ballarat and surrounds that play war games. Let alone specifically Games Workshop war games, which is probably 20, maybe 30 people. Best case. And out of those, they're very much Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40k 8th edition. These people, not to disparage them, they're the monkey see, monkey do types. They're not bad people at all. They just want to enjoy the game. But they're not critical of the company for that. Until you ask them questions, you're like, oh, so you're playing 8th edition, do you enjoy it? And they go, well, I liked this about 7th more, I like this about 5th edition more, or, 8th is fine. That's sort of the attitude. It's like, okay, I get it. They're not bad people, they're just sort of going with the flow. I can respect that. But yes, it does greatly change what I can and can't play in my area. AE asks, why do you think miniature war games and tabletop games interest you? Also, what about a Song of Ice and Fire? Is it all that good? Finally, would you ever consider role-playing, e.g. Dark Heresy, as a series on the channel? I would, but again, you've got to find someone to play with on the channel, which is rare. Kat and I live in 2 different states in Australia. We're about 1,000 k's apart, so if we did something like that, you'd have to be doing like a lot of webcam work, and yeah, I don't know, maybe. What about miniature war games interests me? I got into it as a kid. The Games Workshop store. Thing is, a relative gave me some Games Workshop models. 3 paints: Skull White, Blood Red, and Ultramarines Blue were the first 3 paints I were given, and one surprisingly large in hindsight paintbrush. And I got given some metal blister pack of fantasy models, and that was my introduction to the hobby. Didn't even know what Games Workshop was, and I painted it as badly as you think a person would with those 3 colours and no experience. This is back probably about 1993, I'd say. Real early on. And it wasn't until I actually walked past the Games Workshop store that they put in Greensborough, in Victoria, that I saw the game. Now, it is nothing like Games Workshop now. So forgive me if I go into the nostalgia, and please forgive me if you've heard it before on the channel. So you go into a Games Workshop now, it's this little hole in the wall you see on the side of some street, right? Depending on the suburb, it probably has a cage over the windows because they're so afraid of getting broken into, because Games Workshop picked the lowest rent area they could to put the store in some real dodgy suburb. And you look at the front window, and there's a bunch of plastic display boxes. And in those display boxes are a bunch of the people who go to that store's own armies, and they're usually all in grey plastic. It's not that inviting. And then you go into the store, the manager comes over, starts humping your leg for a sale, and you're like, oh, yeah, okay. No. When I went into a store in about, like, 97, I'm going to say. I'm going to say 97, yeah. At Greensboro. I went into there, and the store was next to the cinemas, and it had a window that was about 8 metres long. And in that window, they had a full diorama of a chaos attack with all the different types of metal demons that they made at that time fighting it out. And they actually put a backdrop up of a starry field, and they were fighting over like a black obsidian. So it was a real low effort, but it looked fucking amazing. And in their front windows, one whole window is just full of an Ultramarines army, like the chapter picture in the front of the 3rd edition army book or rule book for the Ultramarines. Same sort of thing. They had a metal Thunderhawk, one of the lead ones in there, until it fell apart on them because it was too heavy for the glue to hold it together. And this fully painted armies. Every row of their display shelves is fully painted armies. There weren't participant armies hung up. And some people go, oh, it's great that they now put the store's patrons' armies in the window. They're engaging more with the patrons. I go, what draws you in? Grey plastic or that fully painted awesome? This is the end result of what your hard work can achieve. That was cool. And then I walk in there. One table has Battlefleet Gothic. Another one has, I think it was War Master. Another one had 40k. Another one had Warhammer Fantasy. So there's all these different things on tables. And the staff were completely different back then. They didn't come over and just try and hump your leg when you walked in the store. There was 3 staff members. 2 red shirts and a black shirt. So the black shirt was the manager, of course, and he just sort of spent most of his time behind the counter, sort of watching out what's going on, looking after a lot of the sales. There'd be one red shirt who was usually always at the hobby table, and they were helping people to paint, helping them to build, helping them to convert, that kind of thing. Then you had another staff member, the other red shirt, who would be going around, talking to the customers, showing them intro games, that kind of thing. But if you walked in there, especially as a kid like I was, they didn't gravitate towards you. They let you wander, let you have a look. And this is back when there weren't that many boxes on the shelves. It was mostly blister packs. And there is something amazing. Again, this could be me being nostalgic. There's something amazing about blister packs from wall to wall. And you'd go in and you're just looking like, wow, what's in this one? What's in this one? And you're trying to imagine what it would look like painted, what you could do with it, what would it look like as a full unit on the tabletop, you know? And all these things would appeal to you. And what was great about blister packs was they took away the sting of the price tag. Now, it sounds silly because metal blisters cost a lot more than plastic boxes for the same amount of models, right? But then you go, hang on a minute. As a kid, I can drop $12 on a pack of Space Marine Scouts. That's way better than dropping like $70 on plastic Scouts now, or $50, whatever they cost. I could buy $12, this month, and I'll easily save $12 again another fortnight, so I can buy another pack. And that's how an army gets started. None of this bullshit like now where, you have to buy 5 or 10 models in an expensive box that no child in their right mind is going to save up $70 a month for a Space Marine Tactical Squad. But back then, those blister packs made the hobby fucking affordable. It wasn't plastic that got people into the game, it was blister packs. And I stand by that. Now, if you showed that you were actually interested in what the store had to offer you, and you would approach them about it, as a kid, it's a bit of social activity here that was going on. You actually had to talk to someone you didn't know, so you had to man up, walk up to them and say, hey, I'd like to know more about this game. And they've gone, alright, you show an interest. Well, what do you like? What interests you? Now, for me, it was 2 things. Battlefleet Gothic and 40k. Now, with the 40k, they said, alright, let's run an intro game, see what you like more. So, I played some Battlefleet Gothic intro. I found that was probably a bit complicated for me at a young age. But 40k, I understood a bit better. And it was 5 Deathwing Terminators, white metal ones on 25mm bases. They were tiny little Terminators, and they were against like 20 Orc Warboys. and it was really cool because it wasn't like the intro games now, or it's out of a starter set. It was just what the store decided made a good intro, and it was really cool because it dialed up the traits of the two factions to 11. It was like, well, Marines have amazing armor and firepower, Orcs have hordes. That is so simple to get your mind around as a kid. And so I was like, okay, how do I get into it now? And they're like, well, look, every army needs units, and it needs troop units. And those units that are troops, you got to look at, if it's Space Marines, Tactical Squads, and Scouts are your choice. Now, Scouts are cheaper than Tactical Squads. They've got less armor. They're not as reliable, but they've got their own little things, like infiltrating type stuff. Whereas the Marines, the Tactical Marines, they've got more armor, more firepower, that kind of thing. It's like, okay. And they're like, but you also need a HQ, which is the guy who leads the army, the general. And I'm like, okay, I can understand this. And they went, the general of the army, you got a choice of like a captain, who's like a fighter, then you got your librarian, who's like a spellcaster, then you got your chaplain. And the chaplain is the one that appealed to me. So I went, okay, he's got an invulnerable save. This guy is hard to kill. Well, that's interesting. That sounds cool. He comes with a power weapon, comes with the Rosarius. That's the one I want. So I went with a chaplain and 5 Space Marines, and that was, I guess, my first real army, and that was in 2nd edition 40k. So that was what interested me. I went into a store, and it engaged me visually by looking at this amazing diorama out the front. It then engaged me by showing me all these cool products that they had, seeing that there was staff there actively sitting down. I didn't feel harassed by the staff. I actually got to walk up to the staff, and the staff were nice and polite to me. And when I showed interest, they gave me feedback that I found helpful. And then they let me make my purchase. So that's what got me into tabletop games, I guess. As for what is great about Song of Ice and Fire, it is like if you took fantasy and then took all the heroes out of it and all the bullshit, like all the different magic phases and stuff like that. And it's like, here are units on the battlefield. You move a unit, I move a unit. Great. If I don't want to move a unit though, I can move one of my special characters who's off the table. They move on a board, like a chessboard. It's got 5 slots, and each of those slots opens up a different ability which affects the game. It might be something like force an enemy unit to take a morale check. So, one turn you might go, it's more valuable for me to charge this unit. Another turn you might say, maybe it's more valuable for me to try and defeat that unit by taking their morale. So, you might use the tactics board, you might use direct action on the battlefield. That's a cool concept. And because one person goes and the other goes, it stops the steamroller that happens in 40k and Age of Sigmar, where it's like, this whole side is going to go, they're going to fuck your ass. And then whatever you've got left can try and counterattack. That sucks, okay? It's gotten worse because units have gotten stronger proportionally. That's why you'll see like 40k 8th edition now, from what little I keep tabs on it, seems to have a very much durability focus with the lists that are being built. They're going, I make armies that are so tough that they pretty much can't be hurt by the other guy. Is the approach that a lot of people are taking, because the game is just so out of control with the power levels, at least at that tournament end. Song of Ice and Fire doesn't have that. And the way their characters work, like your Jon Snow, your Robb Stark, your Jaime Lannister, instead of being a unit of their own, like Warhammer, where they move around, they steamroll units, it's like, it makes no sense. Like, even if Archaon is the most powerful fighter in the Warhammer universe, you put enough spearmen around him, poking at him, they're going to kill him. Eventually they're just going to land enough blows in there, someone's going to get through the armor and poke him to death. It happens. Whereas when you actually play a game of, fantasy, old school fantasy like 8th edition, you charge Archaon on Drakenyen, or whatever was his horse called, I forget. You charge him in, and he could potentially kill you. You charge him into 20 spearmen of the Empire, he was going to kill them. Like, no doubts about it. In A Song of Ice and Fire, the character is an upgrade for the unit, which just makes the unit better. gives them like special rules. So you put Jaime Lannister in a unit, he has the ability to kill a unit they charge as special character, which will remove a special ability for that unit. That is pretty cool. Whereas others like Robb Stark, you put him in a unit that gives them maneuverability bonuses. So Song of Ice and Fire is very much a game that matters where you place your units. He allows you to sort of reorient your units much more effectively. So again, characters, it's not all about what they can do on their own, it's what they do for the army, which is a great approach. Variable Hunter asks, is it okay to exterminate the furries? Asking for a friend. Yes. Not Alfarius asks, what happens if Forge World and Games Workshop don't change? Will you stick with Heresy and keep making videos? I will. That is something I've done from day dot for the people on this channel. I will do my best to keep putting out videos on the Heresy. I will just actively stop buying products from them. Jacob Farrell asks, what is your opinion on the new Lord of the Rings range? It's not new. How's that for an opinion? You can't release 1 or 2 new miniatures and then pretend like you've done good. So the current starter set, this Battle of the Pelennor Fields, is being brought out. The Theoden model is new, and I believe the other newest kit in it is the Army of the Dead. So, and the oldest kits are from 2002, the Rohirrim ones. Essentially, you have a box that's being charged at an expensive price, let's face it, it's Games Workshop. Some people go, oh, it's great compared to their other products. No. Remember, they're not lost leaders, they don't lose money selling starter sets, they just make less money off their starter sets. This is a box set which is expensive and has miniatures that are almost 20 years old. 3 years, they'll be 20 years old at this point. So they're very old miniatures in that box set. Many of them. Some are newer, some are about 8 years younger than that, but even then, 14 years old is, like, they're old miniatures. They look good though. It's a testament to the sculptors, the Perry brothers' talent. Now, you can't go trying to sell that as a new game. Yes, you've changed the rules up. That's great. I don't care for it though. If they want to go back and they want to move things around, change unit stats, that kind of thing, and do a thorough job of it, that's fine. But this doesn't really seem like that. It's like a half-assed attempt at being thorough. It's like they've done the bare minimum required to keep the game afloat. I don't know. I just don't respect it. Melgador the Sigilite asks, what's your favourite anime? I was a big fan of Dragon Ball Z as a kid. I'd say probably a strange one, Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040. I liked the idea of the badass girls in the power armor. Because again, it didn't take... This is one thing I hate with fucking movies and television right now. They take something like Space Marines, and they try and change them to suit their new perceived, socially correct, whatever agenda. They do it with cartoons, they do it with comic books, all sorts of things. Let's have this person be black now. Let's have this person be white now. Let's have this person be Asian now. Doesn't matter what they change someone to, right? Let's have a man play a woman. Let's have a woman play a man. Like, if it's not true to the story or the character, you're doing it for the fucking shock value and to say that you've done it. In which case, you're not really being sincere about it. So, instead, create your own IP which is sincere. And that's what I liked about Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040. And even as a teenager, I'm like, this I respect. Because they didn't take someone else's idea and just steal it and change it to girls. They made their own thing, which was, hey, we've got these robots around the city which have organic components that make them up. And they were used to rebuild the city after an earthquake. But occasionally these things go fucking rogue and they mutate and they go crazy and they solve other organic objects and other robotic objects and they just destroy things and go out of control. So these women built suits of power armor to fight them with. That was a cool concept. So each episode was, a new monster would pop up, something else would go out of control, and these girls would go out there, kill the things, and then they would try and live their normal private lives on the rest of the episode. You know, like, so you have one girl worked at the police station, another one worked as like a fashion designer, and she was the head of them all. Another one was a rock singer. Another one was just an office secretary. And they're all trying to live these normal everyday lives, and then like don the Superman suits, you know, just oh sorry, I've got a phone call, I've got to go, sorry, and they like ditch their date at a restaurant, and then run out, hop into their, you know, their power armor, and then go out and fight a fucking monster. That's cool. That's interesting. I really like that, and I guess it just stuck with me to this day because of the fact that it was doing strong women right. Mephley's writer simply wants to know what are your 5 favourite legions. Simply based on fluff, the rules aren't important. Well, obviously the Thousand Sons, White Scars, Iron Warriors, Raven Guard, and I really like a lot of legions. There's none that I really hate. I can't give you a 5th, I'm sorry. But you're more than welcome to pick one for me. Do you think the Night Lord Legion... what do I think, sorry, of the Night Lord Legion and the Night Lord Omnibus? I like the Night Lords. I like the fact that they're a dark reflection of the Raven Guard, and I can't say I've properly read the Night Lord's Omnibus. Sorry. What's my favourite Horus Heresy book? I'd say Path of Heaven. The White Scars sort of 3rd novel, I guess you can call it. That's really good. Where did Kat and I meet each other? Kat and I met each other in the army prior to an event for 40k that was held in Townsville in, I think, 2011. We got introduced to one another. It was like, oh, do you guys just want to play a game? You know, the event's in a couple of days. Test your armies out, that kind of thing. And we met then and there, and we've been friends ever since. Cat kicked my ass, by the way. He had a really cheesy 5th edition Grey Knights list, which was just 3 Land Raiders with Tech Marines in all of them, and Death Cult Assassins in all of them, and Inquisitor Courtiers. And basically, they would jump out and it'd be like 40 power weapon attacks back when power weapons just went through all armor, even Terminator armor. There was no AP2, AP3, they were just power weapons. And they had like psychotropic grenades and stuff, psychotropic grenades, and so they like drop your weapon skill, drop your initiative, drop your attacks, and they'd of course attack you at like initiative 5 or 7 or something ridiculous. They would just completely fucking roll you. My army, on the other hand, was because it was 5th edition, I knew there were so many Grey Knights armies there, I thought, oh fuck, every cunt's going to bring a Grey Knight army with Grey Knight Terminators probably, and they're going to be loaded up with Psy Cannons. Like, okay, what will beat that? I'm like, well, a Horde army with power weapons. What is a Horde army with power weapons? Khorne Demons. So I had 60 Bloodletters, half a dozen Blood Crushers, Demon Prince, Skull Taker, whole bunch of Khorne Flesh Hounds, and that was my army. And these two things meeting was just carnage. Because, yeah, he had a lot of attacks. I had a lot of demons. A lot more than he had assassins. And I killed everything except for this one fucking Land Raider, which still had his one surviving scoring unit in it. And he parked it on an objective. And the objective was on a little 25mm base. So I couldn't get enough. I couldn't get close enough to the objective to contest it. And I couldn't do enough damage. So I only had rending strength 6. So I couldn't do enough damage to actually kill the Land Raider. So he won by default. And we still laugh about it even now. It was pretty funny. By the way, the demons went really well in the tournament because, yeah, Horde Army did kick ass against the Grey Knights, except in kill points. How is the Salt Miner going for patrons? Right now, I'm trying to produce a successful master mold for it. I have spoken to a couple of people about actually getting them produced for me. As soon as I can get on top of that, I'll start sending them out. The difficulties with that are the fact that I'm working pretty much from 6 in the morning till sometimes as late as 8 o'clock at night. And as much as I love the hobby, definitely love the channel, my patrons, I've got to spend time with my partner and my family. And I've got to make sure that, I put out videos, put out content, and I've got to do the things that need doing around the house, like mow the lawn, stuff like that. Everyday life doesn't let up. So, will they be done? Yes. Will the first people to get them be the patrons? Yes. It's just a matter of trying to figure out the design process of what's going to happen with the molds. Am I going to get them sent overseas and cast up in bulk? Am I going to front that cost? Or will I do it myself? My injection molding machine is broken at the moment. Not a bad breakage, it's just a problem with the airline itself, which I just need to buy a new airline. It punctured. I had it at work the other day and an idiot ran it over. It happens. Yeah, I'll get that going. Or do I send it to a person within Australia who will cast it up for me? So I have a few options of what I might do. I also haven't decided yet on if it's going to be resin or white metal. I can do either or. So I've got some options. And finally, has a way been found to communicate with guys on Discord or something? Yes, we do have a Discord channel. The Outer Circle does have a Discord channel. Please send us an email at theoutercircle30k@gmail.com or message us on Facebook, any of that kind of thing, and I will get an invite to you if you haven't already got one. That's it. Loved your stuff since I first saw your Case Space Marines videos of old. Thank you. They were my first attempt to try and put some of the rage I felt into video format, and I've learned of better ways to do it since. I keep the older videos up though. I actually dislike a lot of my older videos. I keep them up though as a reminder of where I've come from. So the more I learn about how to deal with YouTube and express the rage, because I thought, yeah, I had to be edgy, and I may have overdone it a lot in the early videos. Alright, Google Paizono asks, what non-existing Chaos Space Marine units would you add to the Codex, and what mediocre units would you get rid of? Tough questions. Mutilators have got to go. Warp Talons have got to go. Neither of those units are right for the game. Again, a lot of this is speaking from Edition's past experience. If I was a betting man, I would... Well, you've asked me what I would want to see, but I would probably want to see something similar to what I think Games Workshop would do, which is they will bring out Terminators for the World Eaters and for the Emperor's Children, and they will be faction-specific Terminators. They will probably bring out some sort of special or heavy weapons unit for them, like a complete Blastmaster Demolition squad, to replace Chaos Havocs and Emperor's Children list. I could see them doing that. For the Khorne worshippers, they'll probably bring out some sort of assault units, maybe even their own assault transport. They have shown they're at least willing to do some innovation with the ugly, horrible-looking Plague Burst Crawler. So they'll probably bring out some sort of transport that's good for Khorne Berserkers. I would love to see that sort of thing. I would love to see more mutants. More everyday people that have mutated, as opposed to Chaos Spawn and Possessed in the Chaos Forces. So, cultists, for every 5 cultists you buy, you can add 1 mutant to the unit or something like that. That would be cool. Yeah, that's about it. Dan Wilson, getting started on the Horus Heresy. Step 1, rob bank. Well, obviously when you start the Horus Heresy, the one getting robbed is you by Forge World. The Whiz Kid, how did you and Kat meet and when? As I spoke about with Mephistopheles Rider a second ago, we met in about 2011 at a tournament. Dan Wilson, getting started on Horus Heresy, rob the bank. Glad you put that in there twice. Mark Brigandi. Hey Macca, what is your favourite band/recording artist? What about cats? And do you have a post office box where I can send something to you? Promise it's not Anthrax. Well, if it's not Anthrax, I don't want it. No, I don't have a post office box. I will amend that in future and get back to you. As for my favourite band/recording artist, that's a hard one. I'm into a lot of older music. I'm a big fan of Led Zeppelin. It's right up there. Queen. I like Hall & Oates. I just like a lot of older music because there's a bit of heart and soul to it. The beats were all different. Whether it's Murray Head, One Night in Bangkok, or Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer. I don't know. It's good music's good music, and Black Sabbath. Yeah, it's a tough one. Big Iron Maiden fan as well. I was never a huge Beatles or Rolling Stones fan, but oddly enough, I like some of the solo work from like George Harrison and Travelling Wilburys. So, yeah, Fleetwood Mac's another good one. Love a lot of Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks, um, Kim Wilde, Keep Me Hanging On. I don't know. I listen to a pretty diverse range of music. When I was in high school, not so much. I think when I was in high school, I was very much a like Queen, um, Led Zeppelin, like the older bands. I was probably insufferable to be around because all the people I hung out with back when I was in high school was when like Green Day was massive right at the end of high school for me, and that emo phase was in. Everyone was like, "Oh, how good's Green Day?" And I'm like, "Fuck Green Day." So I mean, yeah. Shaky Focus Animations asks, "Hey Macro, I have a question. What if someone participating in your no purchases from Forge World Games Workshop 6 months petition wins one of the gift vouchers that Forge World are giving away? Should they spend that, or should people who win just trash the gift vouchers? Before Forge World's new pricing, I'd made a list of what I would buy with that £100, and now with that change, I cannot afford to get those things out this voucher. Thank you." I probably read that a bit fast. Spend the voucher. It's costing them money, not you. Mr. Crazy Cap. Really can't wait for more heresy battles, but if you chose to hold off on them until January 1st, that's a fair call. Ditto for any promotional type content. Any hints at which battles you'll be looking at next? Finishing Istvan 5, and then I'm going to go to the Burning of Prospero, and then Istvan 3, most likely. Sam Richardson asks, 3 questions. Are there any rules changes in 40k 8th edition that seem good to you? There are a lot of bad ones, to be sure, but I think, for example, the new AP system seems like it helps otherwise mediocre units find their niches better. I also like the removal of templates for flamers, but lament the removal of barrage/artillery templates. I don't like any rules for 8th edition. It's one of the reasons why I didn't go for it. I found they messed with things that didn't need messing with, and didn't mess enough with the things that did need fixing. Like flamers, for example, are one of the best anti-air weapons in the game now. I don't know how a flamethrower that burns at probably a couple hundred degrees can take down a flyer that's come through thousands of degrees of atmosphere, but what would I know? 2, you guys are pretty damn creative, so I imagine you guys have over the years thought up plenty of your own tabletop game ideas, from your own finely tuned versions of 30k to things completely out there and in no way related. Any notable ideas? I thought of a game system that was based around sort of early modern warfare. So from sort of the Ottoman siege of Vienna through to the Napoleonic Wars, maybe even up to the Crimean War. I came up with a system of like different generals. So you had like the Duke, Duke of Wellington, Duke of Marlborough, de Vauban, who was a French military engineer, Louis the 14th, all these different people throughout history. Prince Eugen of Savoy. I'm pretty open-minded. Like, I'm a big history buff, as I say, and I think other cultures have very interesting people. Like, the greatest admiral of all time is probably the Korean Yi Sun Shin. Give a person their due. If they're a great ruler or leader or whatever, it doesn't matter where they came from. So I tried to incorporate that into the game. And it's sort of like a Song of Ice and Fire in the way that the units didn't change, but the way that you played them might, based on who your leader was. But I never really got further than any, some basic rules. 3. I know you've discussed your time in the military. I've heard little snippets, but I'd love to know more about what you did for it, where you were stationed, if you had any interesting stories from the military you'd like to share. I can't share too many of the stories, unfortunately. But I was in Wagga for a few months, and that was for my recruit training. Then I went to Albury Wodonga, where I did my armourer's training. So I trained formally as an armourer in the military. I came in from a fitter and turner's qualifications civilian world, which meant that I knew how to use like lathes and milling machines, weld, make gears from scratch, real fine machining stuff, which is why I sort of have a laugh when I see like Adam Savage on his show and he's like using very clunky processes, I'd call them, or doesn't know how to use an indexing head on a milling machine right. I sort of laughed about it because I'm like, okay, I do know how to do all that really well. You know, I was judging him as a peer. And so I knew how to do that stuff really well, and I joined the army as an armourer. So I learned to work on rifles, machine guns, pistols, shotguns, that kind of thing. And I butted heads with staff a lot because, like with now, I was very opinionated. And often you would do stupid tasks in the military. As I'm sure anyone who's served in the military would agree, the command in the military is basically run by morons. 90% of the officers are fucking idiots. And many of them are by the book and don't have a thought for themselves. And you would say to an officer or a warrant officer or whatever, why are we doing this? And they go, shut up, it's the way it's always been done, just do it. And it's like, okay, you're doing it shit. Or there are ways you could do this better. Why are we doing it this way? Australian Army has a hard-on for training for Vietnam too. Vietnam 2.0. Yeah, they love that jungle-type fighting and walking everywhere, big heavy backpacks, and heaps of the time we wouldn't even wear body armor or helmets on exercises unless they really felt that, you know, we had to for the situation. Meanwhile, we were fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq, which are nothing like Vietnam. And you'd be saying to them, why don't we train for those situations? And they're like, oh, the war in Iraq won't go forever. Like, okay, you're right, but it's going right now, so shouldn't we fucking train for that? You know, or they're like, yeah, but what if Vietnam and Afghanistan end and then something happens in the jungles? What are you going to do then? It's like, well, then we'll train for that. Because right now you got a bunch of guys who are really well trained for, you know, jungles and, you know, fighting gorillas in in the mountains, and meanwhile you're going to Iraq and looking for IEDs. Like, yeah, the military shit me in that regard. Interesting to note, I spoke about shit officers, so here's a little military thing for you. I had an officer who was what they call a direct entry officer. So he didn't do the full Duntroon process, which is our sort of version of West Point, like an officer's academy. Instead, he had a university degree, was made a second lieutenant, and basically sent straight to a unit. And then he would slowly, over time, be given his additional training by other officers and warrant officers. Because they felt, hey, he's got a university degree, we need more officers. And he was just fucking terrible. Bad for morale, because he didn't know what he was doing. He would make stupid decisions that on exercises would get people killed. He would argue with warrant officers in front of the soldiers, which is not a good thing to do, especially when it's a debrief about how he just got 20 of his soldiers killed in a firefight because he ran them across open ground and entrenched enemy with a machine gun, because he's an idiot. And when he'd give orders, he would give them straight out of a pamphlet. So officers get given a pamphlet. All soldiers do. When I did my corporal's course, and it's like a, you know, our mission is to move from this position to grid this on you know, a fighting patrol or a combat patrol, whatever you'd call it. Actions on contact with the enemy. If the enemy numbers, you know, 1 to 3 people, we will engage the enemy. If the enemy numbers more than that, we will perform a fighting withdrawal, radio in, and they, you know, all these different actions you'll perform. And that's the way he would do it. Very by the book, very dry to listen to, and it would take a very long time. Meanwhile, there was a really good lieutenant, and I listened in on a set of his orders one day, the next tent down, and his orders were, this is how he'd do it. He'd go, alright, you know where we are, guys. See that fucking mountain there? That's the mountain we're going up. We get up the top of that mountain, there's 3 guys up there, we'll fucking steamroll. Corporals, you take charge of your sections, you know what you're doing. I'll look after comms and obs. Sergeant, you'll be with me for that whole time. We'll work from there, fight through, kill the enemy. If there's more than that, you know what to do, guys. Drop the lead, pull the fuck out of there, radio it into home. It's like, okay, that's the difference between someone who knows what they're doing and someone who's just there because they got a university degree. And I butted heads with the university degrees a lot. From, obviously, Albury Wodonga. I then got posted up to Townsville, where I worked as an armourer, and then posted into Sydney when I went to Special Forces. So I did that with a unit called SOER, Special Operations Engineers Regiment. And their job was look after nuclear, radiological, biological, chemical attacks, counter-terrorism, that kind of thing. So, if terrorists have a dirty bomb, that's where our unit would be involved. And I had dislocated knees, broken ribs, fractured skull, all sorts of problems by this point. Dislocated my knees, still passed my Special Forces fitness tests, but I basically knew that, my body's pretty fucked at this point. I've got to pull the pin. Even though I could still pass those tests, and, there's lots of things where I felt like I was just going to break. And for anyone who wants to join the military, there will be times where you think, I'm going to break, this is too hard for me. Whether it's because you've gone 3 days without sleep, or it's because you've gone a week and a half without food. But you just keep pushing, you go through it. And there I was. I had a fucking busted knee held together with tape. And I finished our fitness tests. I got my beret, got my badge, passed all my fucking courses. And did that for a year and said, no, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep putting myself through this. I don't want to be 30 years old. When I saw a doctor, it was a sports physician for a major rugby league team here in Australia, who saw me. He said, you have the knees of a 40-year-old, and I was 25. So, yeah. For the record, that fitness test in my specific unit was 60 push-ups minimum, which was fine. Then you had 100 sit-ups unsupported, which is fine. Then you had 10 heaves. Now, heaves are a chin-up, but you're not allowed at all to move your lower body. You have to be like a plank of wood, going straight up, straight down, as to a cadence. So pull up, hold it for 2 seconds with the bar touching your nipples, and then all the way down, hold for 2 seconds. Then you had to do a beep test in full combat gear, full uniform, boots, but no body armour. And that beep test was to level 10. Then after that, it was body armour on, backpack on, 35 kilos minimum in the backpack, as well as the weight of your body armour and kit. And then you had to do 5 kilometres, which is, I think, 3.5 miles. I think. 5 kilometres in under 42 minutes. Then you had to swim 400 metres in a swimming pool in under 15 minutes with the same boots and combat uniform on, but no body armour. When you got out the pool, up and down a 6 metre high rope without touching the ground twice. And then you put on full mop gear, which for those who don't know is like the chemical suits, which are very painfully hot. And keep in mind, this is in the middle of Sydney summer, so it's like 30 odd degrees, 40 degrees on the hotter days. And you had 5 kilometre pack march in those. Yeah. And I did all that with a busted knee. So I was once very tough. Now I'm probably as soft can be. And fat. I've put on 25 kilos since I left the army. So there you go. I hope I have answered those questions. But you got 2 more thoughts. A series about dealing with highly specific gaming circumstances. The other side of the coin, to the broad brush strokes of entering 30k. For example, something specific as if you're playing Night Lords, Terror Assault Bridle. I will cover that in upcoming episodes. So the idea is I want to get out the getting started in 30k. Then I will go into like the list building, the things to look at when you make a list, general lists. Then I want to take it up to another more advanced level. So there is a plan in place to keep the series going. 2, have you guys ever designed and or painted, played as your own made up legions? Just wondering, because I'm trying to brainstorm some 11th Legionnaires by the name Burning Scorpion, inspired by Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. I want to make a second Legion based on the Mayans, Aztec, Mesoamerican cultures, because I think they're more underrepresented than many others, and they would blend in really well, especially with their rituals, the taking of hearts, like the fact that, I could make a Legion where, they would take their enemies and then rip their hearts out. Maybe that was one of the reasons they were censored. was because of brutal things like that, like sacrificing enemies, or even if they sacrificed them to a god or in the Emperor's name, like word bearers. And they go, no, you can't keep doing that, guys. So I thought that would be really cool. I was just sort of getting together the ideas for that when the Forge World price hikes hit. But I thought, that'd be great. More interesting than like another samurai themed army or something like that. Yeah. Real Sussex Matt asks, would love to see your armies in the resin plastic, maybe a walkthrough of what you've built or inspired you to make. I love the Getting Started series, and particularly love the Soul Auxiliary episode. Would love to see that army. That army's not fully painted, unfortunately, and I don't really like sharing what I haven't finished painting. It's one of the reasons why, the main reason why I haven't shown any of the Game of Thrones yet. Because it's not finished being painted. There is a lot of footage, though, of my Thousand Suns up and my Primarchs on our channel, so they are out there. As for the Solar Auxilia, they're they're built. That's as far as I've got. And even then, the Draco Sarns and my Super Heavies are not built. So, yeah, probably won't see those for a little while, I'm sorry. Ebvardus asks, I've seen some of the Getting Started Horus Heresy videos. Is it worth it to start 30k right now? I've been holding off on doing a big investment. I only bought Kelth to use it as a word bearer's force in 40k. Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with starting 30k right now. The rules are solid. It's easy to get into, especially if it's the legions that have already been covered, like, word bearers. Great, get right into it. The Forge World prices are a letdown, but it's up to you. You could buy a recast. Not going to say if it's right or wrong. You could buy a recast. You could buy third-party miniatures to make up those forces. It's totally up to you how you do it. There's plenty of books and models that have already been paid for by other people that they no longer want on buy, swap, and sell on eBay, things like that. You can get them for a steal. Don't feel like you have to go to Forge World to get a rulebook. Zerius asks, I'm considering getting some Assault Marines for my 30k Salamanders army. In your opinion, do you think they're worth taking over, say, more tactical Marines or perhaps Pyroclasts? I'm a bit light on infantry currently. Alternatively, do you think it's worth taking them at all in a Salamander's army? Thanks. I don't really think they're worth it in a Salamander's army. You've got initiative problems with Salamanders, with the Sweeping Advance, for example, which is in combat, which is where Assault Marines sort of excel. So, yeah. And Assault Marines are not that good anyway, because they're Strength 4, no AP value on their weapons, so they just bounce off Marines, bounce off Mechanicum. The only thing they're good at killing is maybe Solar Auxilia, but definitely Militia. If they're in the right faction, like, say, Blood Angels, Emperor's Children, factions that benefit from close combat, World Eaters, yeah, they're great, fantastic choice. Pyroclasts are not a very good unit. Probably overpriced for what they do. Yeah, they've got good armor. Their weapon is one of those things that looks awesome on the outside, but then in reality, when you use it, it's not very good. I think the Pyroclast models work a lot better as like command squads, converted squad leaders, that kind of thing. I'd say more tactical Marines. Can't go wrong with more tactical Marines. They're cheap and they're scoring. Imperator Crispico asks, what's your favourite character in 30k, 40k? Also, any opinions on Abaddon? Tough question. Favourite character in 30k, 40k? I really like Khan the Betrayer and Araman. I guess the villains, especially the tragic villains, are very interesting. It's very hard to love Space Marine characters because they're always so fucking over the top. It seems like they're written to be such flawless creatures. Like, no one's going to turn around and say Marnis Kelgar or Kato Sakaris, except for like some young player new to the hobby, right? Or just a raving rabid fanboy. Yeah, really tough call. I'll have to think more on that, sorry. Any opinions on Abaddon? I think Abaddon the Despoiler is great. It's a real shame that he copped so much shit, but that's because of Games Workshop's bad writing. The whole 13 failed Black Crusades, and they've tried to retcon it now into, there were limited crusades to achieve specific objectives, and yeah, I don't know. They've got to do something with him. They've got to bring him out, put him on the table, actually have him physically winning battles, which is something they really failed to do with the Gathering Storm. There should have been a Chaos Triumvirate, and it should have been Abaddon, Fabius Bile, and Huron Blackheart. That should have been the Chaos Triumvirate that was brought out as a counter to Belisarius Call and his Triumvirate. And that would have been great to see. Get them involved. You'd have Fabius come out, he would have been there with the Chaos version of the Primaris Marines, which then spurred Belisarius Call onto making his, because he's seen the Chaos Space Marines and knows it can be done. Something to that effect, instead of the stupid way they did go about it. Putting a new Abaddon model on the battlefield, something probably similar in size to Rabute Gilliman's model in 40k, something similar to that, in plastic, leading the charge would have been awesome. An awesome way of doing things. With Huron as a lieutenant at his side, even if the two don't get along, it would show that, yeah, Abaddon's got one over on him. Because instead, right now, it looks like Huron's almost going to usurp him. So, yeah. Walken Erhardt asks, what would be the worst army to play against? This includes anything cheese, clear bases, no thin coats, proxy, breaking the fluff and the spirit of the game. What would you hate to see against you? I'm more forgiving of what the person does with their miniatures than I am of the person's personality. If they're an utter dick, I will be very passive-aggressive towards them. There's only one person I think I've ever threatened with physical harm, and they fucking deserved it. Because they were just being a douche nozzle. And when asked about it, and other people said to them you were being a douche nozzle, they continued with it. And this wasn't someone who had like a legitimate... Like, I've played against people who you could tell something wasn't quite right with their thinking process. Maybe they had Asperger's or autism or some sort of other mental tick. And you can tell that with people, you know. You just let it slide. This guy was just deliberately making these decisions, and he knew it. He had a dice box, and he would roll his dice in, and he would roll the scatter dice in it, and then move the box to wherever he wanted on the table, and then go, oh look, the scatter miraculously goes in the direction I want it to. And it's like, no it didn't, and you know it. And then he would try and like, oh no, it did. And he did that for turn after turn. I was still kicking his ass too. I think it was more desperation than any other reason he was doing this cheating. And I'm thinking, mate, it's toy soldiers, like, come on. And I even said to him, like, mate, come on, like, I'll just let you land the drop pod where you want, but can you just be honest with me? Like, you move the fucking thing deliberately. It's like, no. And then he would try and, like, every time I did something, I would roll my scatter dice, for example, right as close as I could to where I was scattering the unit. That way there can really be no mistaking it. And it's something I've always done, and I think that everyone should. No point rolling your scatter dice on the other side of the fucking table and then, like, try to drag a tape measure over there if you can avoid it. And yet he would argue that sort of shit with me, and I got to the point where I was like, mate, you need to shut the fuck up or I'm going to punch your head in. Because you're lying to me, and basically I had a big go at him. And Danny Whitehead, for those who've met Butthead, he's a big, imposing motherfucker. He is well over 6 foot, well over 100 kilos, rugby front rower, was a soldier as well. He's just a massive unit, an infantry soldier too. He got punched in the head with brass knuckles by a bikie, which this day has this massive dent in the top of his skull from it, and he still pretty much killed the bikie that did it to him. And he's come over and gone, geez, Mackie, you're getting a bit upset. What's happened here? I explained the situation, and then he was like, I'm going to punch your fucking head into this guy as well. And he calmed right down and changed his attitude very quickly. So that's the worst thing, I think, that I would play against, is someone like that guy. William Gibbons asks, would you be interested in doing a video on the Horus Heresy book series explaining the order of events outside of the main Horus Rising series? I feel as though a timeline would be helpful in explaining the goings-on of the wider heresy, especially for those who don't already know the full lore behind the heresy. Arch Warhammer is going through the heresy novels at the moment, one by one, explaining the details. The problem is as much as they think they all talk to each other, Black Library, Forge World, Games Workshop, they make their own shit up on the day if it suits their needs. So there's a lot of conflicting dates, timelines, people in different places. The length of the heresy was like 7 years, now it's like 10 years, and then it goes down to 5 years, and then It's all over the fucking shop. So it's really hard to put together an accurate timeline. Um, I would love to cover it, but I don't know what I could bring to the table that someone else hasn't already done. Elijah Westberg asks, what is the name of your real-life engineering firm? What does it specialise in? Would you record an actual Horus Heresy battle you play, or even a narrative campaign? Are you considering getting into 3D printing? What kind of 3D printer below 10,000 US dollars could produce detail approaching current casting techniques? So first off, my own company is called Mackenzie Instruments, and I do scientific instruments, usually for the Bureau of Meteorology, so for testing barometric pressure, wind speed, that kind of thing. Most of those are mechanical because digital stuff is great, but the mechanical ones you can put out on an island in the middle of the fucking ocean, and it will return you data constantly and last for a very long time because of the way they're built. It's fantastic. Digital instruments, like, the minute you involve more detailed circuitry and electrics than you need to, the minute you start having problems. So, yeah. The beauty of a lot of the mechanical ones is they mechanically record it onto a physical media of some kind. With barometric pressure, for example, it actually inscribes it onto a rotating cylinder. And it's got a piece of graph paper around the cylinder, so the person can leave it, come back in a week's time, pull the piece of paper out, all the data is there, ready to go. They are so fucking reliable, those machines. It is great. Very, very fine to work on, though. The drum that spins them is a watchmaker's drum. It's full of tiny gears, that kind of thing. So, a lot of engineering work in them when they do fuck up. And yes, that is what I specialise in. I also work for another company, and I do steel reinforcing for concrete. Now, the reason I work for them is because my own business is so limited in scope. Funny enough, there's only one Bureau of Meteorology, and because those instruments last for a very long time once I've worked on them, usually 5 years out in the ocean, you don't have that much turnover, unfortunately. So I could not survive on that alone. Well, I can, and I've done it before, but I didn't enjoy it. I found I earned too little money to support the lifestyle I wanted, which was a house and being able to support my family with one wage if I needed to. I have actually recorded some Horus Heresy battles. None of them have made it to the channel because I wasn't happy with them. However, Kat and I did record some stuff that's on Facebook, which we live streamed just fucking around prior to the last event we attended together. As for 3D printing, I'm sorry, but I just don't know enough about it yet, and the printers involved. I do have some friends I could contact to try and get back to you with an answer, but yeah, that's about the best I can offer, sorry. Hayden Moles asks, G'day Macca, what are your views and or opinion on the Prime Minister Parliament's bill and the ScoMo choice, the Scott Morrison choice? As stated earlier, it's a clusterfuck, and we're so apathetic as a country, we're not going to really do anything about it, are we? That said, Turnbull wouldn't have won the next election, and Bill Shorten shouldn't be the Prime Minister either. We're sort of like America in that no matter who we pick, we're fucked. Where's your cave? Asks. I've never ordered from Forge before, but if I did, as Dark Angels player, what one purchase would you recommend? Jet bikes. Kuro Angle Lucius asks, what's your favourite Forge World model in terms of build experience? The Aurochs is one of the best models I've ever built. The Aurochs, that's the Solar Auxilia Imperial Militia Armoured Transport. Not a very good model for gameplay though, so if you wanted a Rhino that was very expensive because it's all resin, had very few weapon options because it's, well, a Rhino, and didn't really transport the units you want, yeah, the Aurochs. Goes together great though. I guess Primarchs are all great to work on, build, that kind of thing. Character series stuff is good. Yeah. Amon, maybe? Amon was a very good one. Hard to pick. Hanox Whiskey, getting started in building a recasted army. Where to share one's quality recast projects without fanboys quoting GWIP dogma? GST applying to all imports from eBay, etc. Um, you can share it in the salt mines. Our page doesn't care if you got recast or not. Most good heresy pages won't. But I think you'll find the further from Australia you get, the closer to the UK, the more they start caring, especially if you say that it's recast. Cat buys a lot of recasts. I didn't. Now I'm strongly considering it because it's not illegal to buy them except in 2 countries in the world. One of those is France, believe it or not. Not illegal to buy them, only illegal to sell them. So technically you've done nothing illegal by buying them. Well, technically, schmechnically. Who gives a fuck if it is or isn't legal at the end of the day, if it is or isn't legal for Games Workshop to do what they're doing to us. So, yeah. Ari K asks, who is your favourite loyal and traitor Primarch? Who are your least favourite loyal and traitor Primarch lore-wise? Good questions. So, Magnus for traitors, Khan for loyalists. Who are my least favourite loyal and traitor? I guess Lorgar for traitors, and probably Dawn for loyalists. Yeah, I'd say that. Dawn because he's, I don't know, he's pretty boring, let's face it. Doesn't seem to have the real initiative that I thought he would in the stories. Doesn't seem to be actively thinking 2 steps ahead. He always just seems to be reactionary, which is, I guess, his trait, but I don't know, it doesn't work for me. Lorgar is an idiot. Pretty much everything is his fault, except for Erebus. As for favourite loyal and traitor products, yeah, the fact Khan is just awesome, very underrated, and the Scars books have really lifted him, in my opinion. And Magnus, of course, I'm a Magnus fanboy. I guess it's that simple. Michael Stump asks, what was your job in the military? I was a gunner on a UH-60 for 4 years, spent time in Kandahar. I didn't go to Kandahar. I actually never left Australia, especially once I got into the counter-terrorism role. Sort of restricts your scope a bit. As an armourer, it's a very specialised field, and there are not many armourers that go overseas. If you're good at your job, they're reluctant to send you overseas. Our army's a funny thing where it's not necessarily based on merit if you go overseas, we'll say. It's often if a person is a fuck-up and they just want to get them out of the unit, the easiest way to do it is to send them somewhere else. On a course, overseas, whatever. A lot of officers, especially towards the end of Iraq and Afghanistan, officers would put themselves on postings in soldiers' positions for like a Q store, for example. So you'd have a captain or a major being sent overseas in place of a private, and then they'd get to overseas and they'd say, alright, here's your jobs, and they go, I'm not doing that, I'm a fucking major. I'm not going to stack shelves in a fucking Q store and count sets of camouflage. So yeah, no. But besides, I was way happier doing the counter-terrorism. It's a shame I didn't get to go to Iraq or Afghanistan. I lost a lot of friends in both places, but, such is life, I guess. Would have been good for the experience and to do my part there, but I did my part here, so... Yeah. Ravendelve Tactic asks, which Legion out of all of them that you and Kat have amassed is your individual favourites? For me, yeah, my Thousand Suns. But the Scars are a close second. And for Kat, I think it's actually the Emperor's Children's his favourite. I think. I could be wrong. So, Kat, if I'm wrong, correct me. I won't give a shit. Gigglepie Zono asks, also, do you still think Chaos Space Marines and Demons Codex are the added units that it got when it became its own codex should be one codex? No, I'm fine with Demons being their own codex, Chaos being their own codex, but I think Chaos Renegades also needs to exist as their own codex. In fact, should be Chaos Legions, Chaos Renegades, which should cover like your Imperial Guard, Traitor Guard, and your Traitor Chapters. Because I think that Legions are something special. They're better Marines. They're more pure Marines. They haven't had the 10,000 years of GC degradation. So they're stronger Marines, they should be. They have the combat knowledge that they've amassed over that time. They're all fucking psychopaths. But when people like Aaron Dempsey Bowden talk about it, and they're like, oh, Chaos Space Marines can't get this shit together because they're all like sociopaths and they can't look over their shoulders. Like, no, a lot of the Chaos Space Marines have still got their shit together when you read the stories and you think about it. They're just aggro, psychopathic, lost their empathy, things like that. And they believe, the traitor legions believe that they're still fighting for the goal of getting rid of a tyrannical imperium. And a lot of them hate what they've become, especially like the Iron Warriors. The Thousand Sons hate what they've become. Until Games Workshop decided to change that around and make the Thousand Sons happy to serve Zench because it suited their sales needs. Yeah. Demons, one book. Legions, one book. And Renegades, one book. Greg Burgess, ask anything. Where is the Song of Ice and Fire vids? Also, who is the better recaster, China or Russia? They're both pretty good. China and Russia are pretty much equal. I think China's cheaper though. That's because, as a Russian said to me recently, and I, again, listen to anyone from around the world, he said that Games Workshop's never really put in any effort in Russia, and so most Russians play with recasts, and painted armies are a rare thing, which I found interesting. Because, again, there was no real hobby push in Russia, because Games Workshop put no effort in there. As for the Song of Ice and Fire vids, again, I want to paint as much of it as I can before I start showing it. I think that's fair. Kane Sinclair, what did you name your first chest hair? I don't have a name for it, and it's long gone. Sephiroth Vale, first, thanks for the comms. Better comms than Forge World. That's not hard, but thank you. Second, you're getting started. Horus Heresy is the best on YouTube. Can't wait for the next one. Thank you, Sephiroth. Daniel Molloy asks, Maka, what is your opinion on the revamp of Lord of the Rings strategy battle game? As I stated above, it's lazy. Half-assed. Derek Laderis asks, if you were playing a non-Games Workshop game, what would you recommend? And would you be willing to put audio on longer videos on SoundCloud or on podcasts? We have thought about that. We have thought about doing some podcast stuff. We just haven't. It's that simple. It can be quite difficult to sync up mine and Kat's times. He does live in a different time zone. Well, only about half an hour's difference, but, you know, it adds up. He's got his career, I've got mine. And then, you know, you've got your things outside of that, your lifestyle, that kind of thing. That's why we can get together and have videos so rarely. If I were to play a non-Games Workshop game, I would definitely recommend A Song of Ice and Fire. I also back the Hate Kickstarter. Hate looks like a fucking lot of fun. Because it's such a simple, quick-to-play board game. It's when I look at something like Age of Sigmar, I'm like, if you wanted a real quick-to-play board game, that's the way you do it. Which is very similar to Shadespire, in fact. Whereas Song of Ice and Fire is very much like Fantasy Battles was. So yeah, definitely cool mini or not. Hussein Nassar asks, I remember seeing a unit of Dark Angel Scouts with cool helmets. Want to know where you got them from? I think they're cats. I think they are. And I think they're Anvil Industries. I think. I could be wrong. Dave Mullard says, the symbol for your channel looks like something out of Silent Hill. Thank you. When I did the channel art, I took a stock... Well, it wasn't a stock image that someone did of, like, Space the Universe. I added a few things in, changed it up in Photoshop, found some icons, put them together in Photoshop, added like flame effects to them all, superimposed different things together, and that's how I came up with the logo. I also did the same thing with the, I've mentioned it before, the intro sound that you hear, all the moaning and that, it's a couple of different zombie sounds overlaid with one another. One person said, oh, it was lazy. I thought, well, it's not lazy, I superimposed about 5 or 6 different sounds over each other for it. But I didn't want some real long-winded intro like some people have. I wanted something 5 seconds, enough for me to say the outer circle, enough to put up a title, and then into the video. No preamble, no none of that, no opening credits to a TV show. We're not a TV show. I just want to give you the most basic information. You're watching the outer circle, here's the fucking title. And the vocals I gave it were a laugh at ourselves. So the laugh is that it's people moaning. And that's funny because everyone says to us, oh, you just moan and complain. And I thought, that's great. That should be the sound that introduces us. Welcome to the outer circle. Oh, they're moaning again. Zuga Meshral. If you are members of the Outer Circle, are you aligned with Luthor and the other Fallen? No, I'm afraid I'm a strict line man. Cat might be for Luthor, though. He's a bit of an anarchist. Reed Zaleski, what is your favourite Black Library book and character, or characters? I don't have a favourite Black Library book, except I really like the Horus Heresy series. It's a much more maturely written series, and I would say probably Path of Heaven. In which case, my favourite character or characters is probably Tagatai Yasugi, the chief librarian or stormseer of the White Scars. He's pretty cool. Mr. Hellbent, is Cat a real person or is he a Jacqueline Phoenix style performance art piece? Well, he is a real person, but he has a very interesting personality. That's not me trying to put him down, that's me, I can't describe it to you. You just have to meet him and you'll understand. Ryan Coyle, Macca, have you ever bought a recast or two, and would you recommend recasting or do you think it's wrong? Yes, I have bought some recasts. If something is out of production, I can't get it through legal means, I will buy a recast. Because if Games Workshop or Forge World decide they don't want to make something anymore, I don't give a shit. It's not illegal for me to buy something they don't make anymore. They clearly don't want the money for it. Yeah. Would I recommend recasting? Well, I just did, I guess, if, it's out of production. What do I look like behind the face behind the voices? There's pictures of me out there. They do exist. A Game of Dice and Fire asks, do you play non-Games Workshop miniature games other than the awesome Game of Thrones? Yes, I play a few different types of games. The only other one I have in bulk at the moment is Drop Zone Commander. And I was thinking about Drop Fleet Commander, and the only reason I didn't pull the trigger on it was because of Battlefleet Gothic. When they brought Specials games back, I thought, there's hope yet. Cap Key asks, what non-Games Workshop games do you enjoy? Do you do any other sort of hobby modelling? Well, as for non-Games Workshop games, I just sort of said that, the Hate, the Hate Kickstarter I backed. I don't know about the game itself yet, apart from what I've seen. Song of Ice and Fire, Drop Zone Commander, so there's those games. I sort of limit myself. I've bought a lot of games over the years, but many of them I sell off because I go, okay, clearly it's taken up room in the house, I'm not playing it enough, I shouldn't keep it. Other hobby modelling I actually have a full set, except for the Enterprise E, of the Enterprise from Star Trek. So I've got the original Enterprise, the Enterprise A, the Excelsior, the Enterprise C, the Enterprise D. I haven't got the E though, and I haven't got the NX. And I don't believe in any other Enterprises apart from those. I don't give a fuck about the JJ Enterprises. They're not my Star Trek. Hashtag not my Star Trek. So I've got those, and they're all in scale with one another. So like the Enterprise, the original one from the TV series is like maybe 4 inches long. The Enterprise D is like 12, 13 inches long. So it's really cool to see like the scale difference between them all. I also have Panzers and things like that. I love building like World War II tanks. So yeah, that's some of the other stuff I do. Maria Astelin, Macca, have you ever thought of coming to England for one of the Warhammer World events? I would love to. With the recent price rises, if I want to buy Warlord Titan from them, which I don't, I could probably fly to England, I believe. Someone even worked out you can fly from Australia to England if you buy the cheap shit flights, buy the Titan, claim back the 20% VAT on it, fly back to Australia, and it will be cheaper than just buying the Titan and getting it shipped to you. Which goes to show, like, there's definitely no reason that they can charge us the price they do on it. Yes, I would love to go to England. I would love to go to some Warhammer World events. I am Scottish descent. I've got plenty of family in England and Scotland, distant relatives. And it would be great to see all those places again. Well, for the first time for me, I guess, in reality. As for a Warhammer World event, I think if I walked into Warhammer World, I'd probably burst into flames at this point, though, because I've said so much negative things about the company. But then again, have I been wrong? And that's the question. I doubt myself a lot when I do these videos and I look at some of the feedback, like the Primaris Marines video I did when they first came out. I said, great idea for the wrong faction. I copped equal likes to dislikes on that. I thought maybe I'm wrong on this one. And no, I'm doubling down. I was right. Should have been Chaos that got him first. And yeah, people are just wrong. James Johnston, what are your most and least favourite Horus Heresy characters and why? Also, what is the single model you've painted that you are the most proud of? Most proud of model I've painted is probably Horus. The Warmaster Horus. I did a really nice job on him. A lot of wet blending and that kind of thing. Red marble, pink marble base I did on him. It's not perfect at all. But I'm really proud of what it was because I tried, every one of my products I've tried to use different techniques, enamels, oils, washes, dabbing, all types of different ways of putting on those different mediums. With Lorgar, for instance, I did droplets of all different colours of oils on his base. So it's a grey primer, drop of blue, drop of red, drop of green, drop of brown, drop of yellow, all over the base. Got a big piece of tissue and wiped them all around until I wiped off most of the paint, and it gave it a really realistic rock colouring and texture. So that was one of the things I did. So I'm really proud of just all those Primarchs for those reasons. They're not all perfect. In fact, they're far from perfect. But they're decent. Most and least favourite Horus Heresy characters. Abaddon in the Horus Heresy is so single-minded in his approach to everything that I don't like him there, but I like him in 40k. I like what they've done with Nathaniel Garrow, Khan the Betrayer, Araman. They're all interesting characters. On the other hand, Erebus is probably the one I fucking despise. Corferon as well, both word bearers. They're just dicks. I don't like Argyle Tell, he's such a fucking Mary Sue. But then again, I don't like a lot of Aaron Dembski-Bowden's writing, and people right now are typing the fucking hate to me in the comments. But his books all pan out the same ways. Like, there's repeating patterns that you notice after a while. So, yeah. RJ LaRose, do you guys only play 30k or do you do any other of the GW games? I also have Shadespire. I play Mordheim, old school Mordheim. I also have Blood Bowl. I've also got some Necromunda stuff. So I mix it up a bit. Kat has some other games as well. Neither of us got on the Titanicus train, especially when we saw that it was over like 500 Australian dollars. We said, fuck that shit. And refused outright. Yeah. Also, when do you plan on starting the advanced 30k lists? Kind of want to know your thought process. After I do the Sisters of Silence part of the Adeptus Custodes, we'll start moving on to more advanced list building. The way that I'm probably going to structure it is by force organisation slot. So you're looking at HQs maybe, or maybe troops, elites, super heavies, that kind of thing. What is the purpose of the unit? Why you would pick certain units in certain situations. Ivan Bloodhow asks, did you guys ever get the chance to play Battlefleet Gothic, and do you think it would be worth bringing back with the current box style game released Games Workshop has adopted? Good question. First, yes, we both played Battlefleet Gothic. I was a huge fan of it. Don't think Kat was. I would love to play it again, because there's something cool about that. I also loved playing Man of War, so I'm showing my vintage there. If they did it, I think they would do it like all of their other box games, in that they would bring it out and it would have Battlefleet Gothic Lite, L-I-T-E mode, in quotation marks. I was signing with my hands, but obviously this is audio. So that would be a game where they would probably have a small game board and be really cut down, simplified, or bastardized version of the game. And then there'll be the, oh yeah, if you also want, I guess you can play it on a 4x4 table version of the game. It would definitely be worth bringing back. It is a great game and so different to their other Games Workshop IPs. You could have a lot of fun with it, especially with the sculpting technology now. You could put some real detail into those ships. However, knowing Games Workshop, I would not expect, just like with Titanicus, the old models to just slot in. So new Necromunda is a different scale. New Battlefleet Gothic would be a different scale. An Emperor battleship would probably be twice as big now. Something like that, 1.5 times as big. It'd be loaded up with detail, would look fantastic, and they'd sell the box for $500 and you'd get 6 ships in it. That's the sort of I don't know, mindset that I think they have now is that, oh yeah, if we make the models bigger, they can't use their old models, we'll force them to pay a lot more for the box and for the individual miniatures. And then people will go on the internet like they did with Titanic and say, oh, well, the Warlord Titan's the size of a knight. It's clearly fucking not, but it's the size of a knight, so therefore the price is pretty good because, I mean, if it was a knight that I was paying for, that would be a good price. People are morons. Lambert2191 asks, so in regards to A Song of Ice and Fire, what is your opinion of the show? I absolutely love it until we hit Season 7. Season 7 was just facepalm every fucking second scene. Yeah, Season 6 was a really solid season. I think the best season was probably 3 or 4. Yeah, really good show, good characters. Don't like what they've done in the last season. That's all I can really say on that. I should give my real thoughts on the show in its own episode, so I will do that at some point, I promise. Khan WE. Macca, what welder do you own? I want to buy a Furionis Magic Wave 2200 AC/DC TIG inverter. Thoughts? Never used one, unfortunately. I own a couple of welders. I have a Mega Mag, which is very good. That obviously gives you all your options. It's a very big machine, about $5,000 machine. I also have my favourite welder, which is actually a little SIG weld that cost me about $350. I think it was 700 brand new. I got it for about $350 at a sale, brand new. And it's a little TIG stick welder. Maybe, if you know the Games Workshop, the little carry cases they do now for your models, the little foam carry cases, it's about the size of that. It's real tiny, and you can put it on a shoulder strap, and it's great for doing like, if you're doing some welding around the house, and you've got to like weld some posts up near the ceiling, that kind of thing. You can climb up a ladder with it and weld away, just drag the leads up there, you have to put it on a table next to you. You can just carry the fucking thing with you. It is fantastic. It'll do up to 4mm rods. I don't suggest it. I try and only use about 3.5mm rods in it. And if I'm using it for TIG, it's real good. Really good little TIG. Probably don't want to be welding anything over sort of like 2.5mm steel, maybe 3mm steel. Again, it's only for the lighter stuff. But, you use TIG on light stuff anyway, like exhaust pipes and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's a fantastic one. Little SIG weld. Nikki Hudson asks, hey, Speed Freaks is going to come out in its own box and no other old models we don't want. Score. That is, and that's fucking great. And as I say, I will always give Games Workshop their due if they deserve it. In this case, they deserve it. Well done to you, Games Workshop. It is a brilliant move to bring out new models in their own boxes, and I strongly approve of it. On the other hand, I don't approve of the fact that you took 25 years to update the Orc buggies. Luke Norris, who's us? It's Cat and Macca. John Foley, do you prefer old crons or new crons? I don't like retcons, or retcrons. I like old Necrons. Yes, they needed some expansion of their lore, their fluff, their history, but there is something more disturbing and scary about them being a mindless faction of automata. The thing that makes the first Terminator movie so fucking great, because I'm a bigger fan of Terminator 1 than Terminator 2, is the fact that it is a single-minded machine. Its sole purpose is to destroy its target. And it will do whatever it takes, even when it's blown apart in pieces, and it's just an arm, bit of its torso and its head left. It will still keep coming for you until it's completely destroyed. And the idea of that being what Necrons were, they will just try and destroy life. They hate life. That's the only emotion they have left. Destroy all life. The one unbending, unyielding thought they have was fucking awesome. Because that is so fucking grimdark and it suits 40k so well. And that was taken away from them in favour of dynastic struggles of the 14th dynasty of the ancient Egyptians set in space. That sucks. Personal opinion. Some people can like it. And then, if people do like it, that is totally fine too. Different strokes for different folks. I'm a big fan of the old fluff, but I'm a very nostalgic guy and like a lot of the older fluff. So, here's what it is. One Stop Warhammer says, please keep this in mind, I respect you a lot. Why are you always so mad at Games Workshop and salty at what they are doing? I live in Wollongong, Australia, and I'm affected by the price increase as well, but I remember Games Workshop is not a friend, it's a company, so there is a goal to make money. I understand that you're trying to raise awareness, but it makes you look like you're unhappy about everything which Games Workshop does. I'm not unhappy about everything they do. Not at all. It's a very good question, actually. So, I believe they deserve to make money. Every company deserves to make money. It's why they exist. But you shouldn't be trying to make your money at the expense of the people buying from you for the wrong reasons. All these other miniature companies are out there. Like, I know with the Dust company, for an example. At Adepticon, or Gen Con, whatever, Gen Con I think it was, they gave away models to people. Just gave away fully painted models ready to go in their armies. Gave it to them. People who participated in the event as a thank you. Games Workshop, on the other hand, you participate in their events. Best case, you might get a trophy. If you win a prize, like you come first, yeah, you might get a voucher, maybe a box of something. That's best case. You know, like, when small companies can put out such effort for their player bases, but this Games Workshop's the biggest. They should be the trendsetter. They should lead by example. Show the good they can do for the hobby and the community. And they don't do that. They are greedy. They use a lot of doublespeak and marketing speak. They won't give straight answers. They only give copy and paste answers. They are disrespectful to the people. And there's the one company on earth that so much leeway is given to. Like, critiquing them at all gets seen as salty, as you say. It's not salty to say that they're charging Australians 40% more. And people will say, oh yeah, well, you're not going to change that, so why bring it up? It's like, well, it should be brought up. Why do you want to let them get away with it? And then people say, oh, but what if the hobby dies? Well, if the hobby dies, that's their choice. They're the ones choosing to set such high prices. A company can make money for its shareholders, for its owners, without extorting people. That's how all other businesses are run. But you don't see your local greengrocer say to you, alright, we are the supplier of apples in your town. We therefore are going to jack up the price of apples by 40%. Not because they cost us more, just because we can. You won't see it happen. Because the market sort of looks after itself. You'll just go, that's great, I'm going to go to another greengrocer then. And then they'll go, oh, wait, maybe we can do something. Okay? Games Workshop isn't like that. You say, well, I'm going to go over there, I'm going to play Dust Tactics, I'm going to go play Battletech, I'm going to play Drop Zone Commander, I'm going to go play Cool Mini or Not game. Games Workshop will go, well, fine, fuck off then. We don't need you. And that's if they even say that. I mean, look at the way they talk to people on their fan engagement, in quotations, Warhammer community. I've noticed for the last week, people on there constantly, on every post, why the price increase in Australia and New Zealand. Can you explain this? What are you doing about it? And every single response they gave was the exact same one. We're not quite sure how the finances work. The account-nomancers know the magic behind it, whatever the fucking response is, but it definitely has account-nomancers in it. They've put that post response up to everyone. People emailing them get the same thing. The company does not answer questions at all. Now, any other company gets this kind of backlash, they fucking rein it in. Look at Microsoft with the Xbox One. They fucked around. They said, oh, you're not going to be able to play pre-owned games. You buy the game for your console, that's it. You're the only one who can ever play it on that console. Like, you can't even give it to a friend to try it on their Xbox. No. You and only you can play it. Oh, and all your games, you need internet connectivity all the time. Even though we as a company can't guarantee that you'll have internet the whole time, and then you won't get to play the games, you must have the internet. And people said, fuck you, we're not going to buy a console. All of a sudden they turn around and went, whoa, let's not be so fast. Maybe you don't need to be connected to the internet all the time. Maybe the games don't need to be locked to just your console. But Games Workshop, they think they're better than Microsoft. They think they can actually turn around to us and say, no, we will charge whatever we want to charge, even if it's wrong. Because here's the thing. A Warlord Titan costs £2,100 or whatever it is, or sorry, 2,100 Australian dollars, £1,300. Costs £1,300 in the UK. Now, it doesn't matter where the fuck you sell it to in the world, it still costs them, or still is fine to be sold at £1,300. Doesn't matter what currency you convert it into, they're still getting £1,300 back. Because they're selling it from the UK to somewhere else. It's not like they're shipping it to another store in another country of theirs where other expenses come in. So once they tack that shipping fee on to that £1,300, that Titan is the same price for everyone. But they didn't choose to do it that way. They said, what if the pound dips? What if the pound raises? It doesn't matter if the pound dips or raises, because no matter what, you're still going to get the same number of pounds. It's just the people on the other end don't get screwed. And that's what's despicable about it. They have done it entirely for increased margin and no additional effort. Nothing good has come of the situation. Now, as you'll notice, Nikki Hudson, just a couple of lines back, said, hey, Speed Freak's getting their own box of the old models. And I said outright to her, that is great. It is great to see. I appreciate the move. The only negative thing I had to say was they should have done it sooner, because 25 years is way too long. I think everyone will agree on that. Now, that's, again, I'm not being mad or salty against Workshop. I'm saying they're doing the right thing there. And if they do the right thing, I will support that. But there are so many other channels out there, like your Chapter Master Valrex, your Commissar Gameser. They will come out and say, oh, check out this new kit, Spiky Bits. They will all go out, Belvos Souls, and they'll talk about, oh, check out how awesome this new kit is, unboxing of this new kit, how cool is this? Go see their channels if that's what you want. But we're not here for that. If we were, what would be the point of watching us? What would we be delivering to you? What would we be delivering to the people who watch this? More of the same nonsense they're fed up with from other channels, which is they came here for a reason. They didn't come here to see that same stuff. They came here for honesty. And honestly, Games Workshop treats the consumers like shit. It doesn't respect us. They don't want to communicate with us. They think they're too good to talk to us at all. In fact, they only want to give us cut-paste responses. So, yeah. And it's not salty to call them out on it. It is just, a spade is a spade where I come from. And I'm like this at work too. And it's worked for me. It's got me up the corporate ladder. It worked for me in the army. Yeah, I questioned all the orders I was given if they were shit orders. Not every order, but I questioned a lot of orders. They still promoted me to a corporal within 4 years, which is pretty fast in the Australian Army in my core of the army that I was in. So, it's worked for me. Being assertive works. And if you're right in what you say, if you have the evidence to back up your convictions, it will work out for you. And I've put all the evidence out there of how shady they are as a company. So, yeah. Malkador the Sigilite. If you can say it, what is your job? As stated, I look after, mostly, a steel company now. And Slender Man, lucky last. As I'm sure you know, the rest of the world, Australia can look like a terrifying place packed with creatures that can kill you. However, as Australians yourselves, is there anything out there that scares you? Good question. I have been in a boat next to great white sharks longer than the boat, and it was a 23-footer. So massive great white shark. I have been on Exterminate landing craft and seen crocodiles whose heads were so wide I probably would barely be able to touch their ears. Or touch the sides of their jaws, reach around their head. Like 5.5 meters. Massive crocodiles in the wild too, salties. I've seen all manner of spiders, and I was once climbing under the house when I was a kid because there was a bird that fell down through the wall, and the poor bastard was trapped in the wall. Just a young chick, and I climbed under the house to get it out, and I came out covered in redback spiders, which is very similar to the American black widow, and a very dangerous spider, and I was covered in the fucking things, and for years after that I was arachnophobic, and until I joined the army. Because then, laying on ambushes in the fucking shrubs and knowing you can't really move for hours, and you sort of got to dig a hole in the ground next to you and piss in it and shit in it and all those good things. You have a lot of spiders, centipedes, scorpions, those kind of... They just treat you like a log, and I realised that, hey, shit doesn't come and attack you for the sake of it in nature. It usually only attacks you if you've done something to it, like stood on it, hurt it, you're in its face. Except for the fucking cassowary. So I guess, is there something that scares me in Australia? The cassowary. So, for those who don't know, everyone knows the big two birds in the world are the emu and the ostrich. Well, there's one that's very close in size, and that's the cassowary. And it lives in Australia, right up the north in Queensland, and in New Guinea. Imagine something like an ostrich with a big crest on top of its head, okay? It's bright blue, and it has these really bright, sort of hazily eyes. And all its feathering, its down, is like black quills. And it has feet like a fucking velociraptor from Jurassic Park. And I'm not making this up. Look up a cassowary's feet. These things have claws that are 3 to 5 inches long. And if they kick with them, which they love to do, they can punch them clean through a car door. And they are incredibly territorially aggressive. So, saltwater crocs, yeah, they'll eat you if you get near them, because they're a crocodile. Same with sharks, right? The cassowary will go out of its way. You not only leave its territory, they will keep chasing you. They will chase you through a fucking river if they have to. Crocodile, it'll come a little bit out of the water and it'll go, fuck this, too hard, go back in the water. A shark's not going to come out of the water chasing you. Shark's not going to climb up the beach trying to eat you unless there's a sharknado propelling it. Cassowaries, those fuckers will chase you. And when you're doing training in the jungle and you have a fucking rifle with you loaded with blanks that's no fucking good, you swing the rifle at them like a fucking club and try and leg it back through dense rainforest, being chased by this squawking motherfucker trying to kill you. Cassowaries are fucking terrifying. They belong behind electric fences in Jurassic Park with all the other dinosaurs. And please, if you don't know what a cassowary is, Google the fucking thing. Anyway, that's it. That's all of the questions I have here. I haven't gone into the sub-comments, because they're just replies to the first comments. But I hope I've done my best to answer all 94 comments. Thanks everyone who watched the episode. See you all next time.